Welcome to the Dougherty County Board of Commissioners meeting with your chairman, Christopher S. Cohilas. Your commissioners include, from District 1, Commissioner Ed Newsom. From District 2, Commissioner Victor Edwards. From District 3, Commissioner Clinton Johnson. From District 4, Commissioner Russell Gray. From District 5, Commissioner Gloria Gaines. And from District 6, Commissioner Anthony Jones. Also joining us is your County Administrator, Michael McCoy, Assistant County Administrator, Scott Addison, County Clerk, Juwan Ware, and County Attorney, Spencer Lee. Thank you for joining your Dougherty County Commission meeting.
This one would be like you, Victor. All right, good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and call to order the Dougherty County work session for April 12, 2021. For the record, I note that all commissioners are present in person, and let's go ahead and whip through the agenda. The minutes of the March 15th regular meeting and March 29th work session. Any comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, let's move on to delegations. This is where the commission will hear comments on those items pertaining to Dougherty County for which public hearing has not been held or scheduled. I ask everyone to be brief to the point, considerate of time for others. Any delegations at this time? All right, let's move on to additional business. Recommendation to accept the proposed location of Tiff Park for the Albany Tennis Center as recommended by the Recreation Committee. Recreation Committee Chairman Clinton Johnson will address. County Administrator Michael McCoy, Albany Tennis Association Representative Wes Sadler, USTA Senior Consultant, Facility Services Robin Jones, USTA Business Development Consultant Jonathan Freilich, and Boys and Girls Club of Albany Chief Executive Officer Marvin Laster are present. I'm going to turn things over to my esteemed colleague, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be very brief. As you all know, we are looking at the Tiff Park location for the tennis center, for Dougherty County Tennis Center. At this time, I'd like Mr. McCoy to pick it up and talk about where we are with the architecture and the plans to go forward. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Recreation Committee met several times, had very productive meetings, and eventually recommended Tiff Park as the proposed location for the tennis center. We are here today making that recommendation. We also have with us representatives from USTA. Mr. Lassiter couldn't be with us as we will need property from the Boys and Girls Club as well as the City of Albany, but Mr. Jason Belk is here. Filling in for Mr. Lassiter, and of course we have Mr. Wes Sadler here with, he's very active in the tennis community, and everyone, we have a lot of support for this proposed project, and we, in the next agenda item, will be recommending a engineering firm to help us with the development of construction plans and will manage the development of this particular project.
Thank you. And one other point about the management proposal, we'll come back to this commission with that recommendation at a later date. Yes, sir.
So you're absolutely correct. That has to do with the Recreation Committee also recommending that the county continue to provide the management and administration of this tennis center, and keep that on the county side and not and not farm it out outside the county. But we'll come back with that recommendation later.
Okay. All right. Any comments, questions, or discussion on that item?
Yeah, I'm curious what the timeline might be on this. Do you consider this a tenuous recommendation, or are we at the point where a decision has to be made?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Larry's going to go and ask them to turn the blower down. Could you repeat that, please?
I'm sorry. I'm curious about the timeline on this project. whether or not we are at a point where a decision has to be made, or are we still discussing?
No, we are at a decision point.
We are at a
Yes,
decision
ma'am.
point.
Very good.
Okay.
If the engineering or something comes back that says this can't be done for whatever reason, then of course we would change our recommendation. But at this point, we feel pretty confident with the city and the county both going and making this now. This together with the city now turns this area into what they're calling a racket complex. I think it's not a new term from a tennis center.
Okay.
This thing, if the city comes aboard with that pickleball court, that area becomes a racket complex. And so that opens the door for more things to come our way.
Very good. Excellent. All right. Next, recommendation of the Recreation Committee to hire EMC Engineering, Leesburg, Georgia, for tennis center engineering services. The proposed amount is $202,640, and funding is available in SPLOST 5. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, sir. I wanted to everybody look at the information from EMC. Their recommendation looks like for the county for the North Zone tennis course is $120,000, and it looks like the pickleball course is coming in at $82,500. That's the city's portion of that. We are not responsible for that $82,000. Our portion is only the $120,140 for EMC services, and we want the city to agree with us in this because having one firm do all of the architectural engineering work helps us move forward quicker. Mr. McCoy?
Yes, you're absolutely correct, and I also want to recognize interim recreation director Michael Potter for the city of Albany. He's present as well, but yes, sir, that is a good point that you made, and we'll correct that for the regular meeting.
While we're on this subject, Mr. Chairman, Mr. McCoy, is just Robin Jones on the line still, USTA?
She should be, Ms.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Ms. Jones, is your colleague with you as well?
Jonathan?
Yes, Jonathan is also on.
Jonathan, can
Yes,
you?
sir, I'm here.
Yes, sir. Can you talk to us a little bit more about some of our discussions about how this tennis center will actually operate in our community?
So you guys are going to have options, right? So there's you've got two options that you need to evaluate. If you use an outside vendor, which there are companies around the southeast and the country that are an outside vendor that would basically come in as a turnkey. You would put together an RFP, what your scope of services are. You'd have multiple 2 to 3 vendors will probably bid on it, and then as the city, as your community, as your city council feels comfortable with the vendor, then you would select the vendor for about a 3-year term. There'd be a revenue share. There would be the upkeep. There would be so you'd work through the details within the contract of what's on the vendor and what's on the city. The second way that you would go about it would be to hire a tennis director in-house as a city employee. Municipalities throughout the country are going away from that model, but it is a relevant model where you would have a staff member who's a tennis director, and it would be he or she's responsibility to administer programs, recruit the event. So your approach for the majority is to outsource it, and then they will provide all the services needed to make the facility successful.
Thank you. And what he's talking about is outsourcing, farming out the management part of the center. I was more so referring to attracting the kind of tournaments that will come here with a 12-court center in our community and the kind of revenue it would generate having that court system here. The location being close to downtown makes it a better place, in our opinion. It gives it more access to more people to be in that location. And also, I think Mr. Sattler spoke to me about when he wants to play tennis, the places he has to go, and the frustration he faces at times, making it around town. Not to say where you're going is a bad place, but having that center closer is much more convenient for a lot of people who play tennis. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. The way you'll recruit events, you'll have events, price points for entry fee will be between $50 and $100 a person. You can usually, for a 12-court facility, you're looking at around 100 to 150 participants. They're going to stay in your hotels, eat in your restaurants, shop in your stores. As you get a very reputable vendor, they are going to be able to attract more events because they're going to have a track record of being successful in the events that they run. You'll probably look at, I would think, because you also want to have your community play, if you're looking at, 12 to 20 weekends or 12 to 20 events annually, I think is a fair number. I think as you get a little bit more aggressive, you may have a couple teams on the way coming down to spring break. You may have a couple colleges stopping in town, play a couple matches because it'll be a centralized location. And so basically the events are going to be as creative as your team can get to pull people.
Thank you, sir.
All right, very good. Any other comments, questions, or discussion on that item?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm just glad we're unloading this tennis. We just had that money in the bank a long time. It's got a mold over it. We need to move it on. I'm glad to unload it.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. All right. A recommendation to approve the alcohol application transfer of ownership from VV Trading LLC, Venkateshwar Guntuka licensee, DBA VV Food Mart at 4324 Radium Springs Road for beer and wine package. The Albany Dardy Marshal's Office recommends approval. Chief Donaldson is present to address.
Chairman, it appears that Chief Donaldson must have been detained, but they recommend approval.
That's fine. Go ahead and call recommendation to approve the alcohol application transfer of ownership from Bagain LLC, Ayaz Ahmad licensee, DBA Stop and Shop at 2201 Liberty Expressway Southeast for beer package. The Albany Dardy Marshal's Office recommends approval. Any comments, questions, or discussion on that item?
Do we know if the thorough background checks are done on the new recipients of these? Is there some loophole people are taking advantage of if you transfer one of these alcohol licenses to someone else versus apply de novo?
No, sir, I can address that. The chief is here, but the same process is completed as if they were a new applicant, but what's noted on the information is transfer of ownership, so you can see that the location was previously licensed.
I got you.
Good morning. Apologize for my tardiness. Good morning.
No worries.
Any issues with these two transfers?
No, sir. I did a background investigation, and police had no calls, no problem with neither one of the locations.
All right, very good. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next, recommendation from Human Resources to accept the 2021 Georgia County Internship Program grant from the ACCG Georgia Civic Affairs Foundation in the amount of $2,607.60. The grant will provide a summer internship for the CDBG Disaster Recovery Program. The county received the award in 2020. However, due to the pandemic, ACCG transferred the award to this year. County Administrator, Mr. McCoy.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, we're recommending approval. This is a great opportunity and first time that we received this opportunity from ACCG. Due to the pandemic, we were unable to implement, but we are very confident that we'll be able to do it this year. And this will be a great opportunity for a student to learn some very valuable skills here in Dougherty County.
Mm-hmm. Understood. All right, any comments, questions, or discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
How are we going to go about selecting this person? I was looking at these numbers here, and I was going to ask, is it possible that split this money and instead of having one student to have two students maybe for 3 weeks, whatever. I don't know what the latitude is on that, but I know we're going through COVID-19 season and a lot of folks just don't have a lot of money. So I was just thinking instead of having one, maybe we could use the term to do two. But that's just my way of thinking and thinking in hardship for all these folks who have not been able to work.
May I comment on that? Commissioner Jones, that's a very good point. I was going to come behind you with that. But rather than split, why don't we match it? It's $2,600. That way you have two. I'm sorry, Ms. Hall, can you please tell us what the program will entail? Let me back up a little bit. Can you tell us what the program is going to be about?
Sure. So ACCG guidelines, I'm not sure if we can offer it to two people, but the option is available for you all to match it, and then we also offer it to two people. but they will be working with the Miss Georgia Collier Bowlings in the new department that they have for Georgia Recovery Grant, Disaster Recovery and Grant Department. So they'll be working in the development of that department. The grant is actually for 200 hours for $12 per hour for a student.
And I apologize for getting ahead of you. I've been cooped up for a year and a month, so I'm just hyper.
And it's so good to see all of you here today. It's been a long time, so good seeing you all.
Good to see you too.
But I do applaud Mr. McCoy and you for making these opportunities for our youth. It's something that we've talked about doing. I do applaud you for that work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Now, I'm piggyback on what Commissioner Johnson said about matching the funds. I'm interested in that. I don't know, I don't want to just fall down by the wayside like y'all can hear me.
Well, my only hesitation with doubling the number of interns is, there's only so much work that can be done by an intern, and there's only so much guidance Ms. Collier Bowling can provide and attention away from her primary work duties to support an intern. And if we double that, we actually half the amount of work, which degrades the experience that an intern would have if they were to come do this. So we don't know what to expect because this is the first year. And while I do love the opportunity to get interns and give people the opportunity to get experience working directly at the elbows of our very skilled professionals, because this is a very, very, very niche skill set that could take somebody very far in a career, and I wish I knew more about it. However, I think given this is being the first year, maybe we go with one and see how it works. If it's wildly successful, we'll know we need to maybe apply again and maybe invest more, or even look at funding a full-time, intern cycle for this type of position.
Well, since we're making it up as we go, I think we have Madam Clerk here, and I'm sure there's some other office work down there that can be done. This is an opportunity for young folks. I mean, when I was growing up, I wish I had this opportunity to be in these offices and be able to learn these skill sets. So I think we ought to think about it and just don't let it dry up on the vine and die because of the fact that 100 years ago, the best investment was an oak tree. 100 years later, the best investment is a child. And I think we need to invest in our youth in this community, especially with the crime rate that these guys, some of them are doing. If we have an opportunity to seize the moment, I think we need to do it.
And I'll just go back to, I appreciate Commissioner Russell, but I guess I wasn't just thinking about in the box of that particular position. We have, how many departments we have? So again, I think we can find a place where there is at public works, because that was one of the discussions we had about a month ago about trying to find internships for young people. And I think it behooves us not to. So here's an opportunity, not necessarily like Mr. Jones said, we can make it up as we go. So again, we're not gonna run off the track by making it up as we go. So we just saying another $2,000 to match, to find a place, and I don't know what you'd be willing to, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna leave it up to Mr. McCoy. And I know we can find another place for another teenager to work.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with what you're saying, but this is only for this one grant through the ACC Civic Affairs. So, I mean, this topic is what we're discussing today. If we want to open a topic and put it on future agendas to have a county-derived internship program, then there's interest, we should do that.
I think...
I just want to bring it back down to what the...
No, I understand what everybody's saying. What I like is, I'd like to get a staff recommendation on this. But Commissioner Gray is right from a point of parliamentary procedure. What we have before us is this. I think it also sparked some positive conversation. Don't want us to foreclose the possibility of pursuing internships, but if we're going to do that, I think that needs to be done in a manner that is judicious with respect to the budget, our overall goals, and we need to have a plan and a program. My experience with internship programs has been that you've got to have policies, you got to have procedures, you got to have checks and balances. You got to make sure that they're actually getting the experience, that you have the manpower necessary to provide the mentorship, and you also got to do the appropriate background checks, make sure that they sign confidentiality. There are hoops to be jumped through, and I'm not saying any of that to make it seem like it's insurmountable. It's all easy to do, but what I would like to do is get a separate staff recommendation at some point, you know, regarding like if this is something that is the will of the commission, which I sense that it is, how do we go about doing that? And I'd like for us to have everything buttoned up at the staff level. All good talking points, and appreciate everyone's thought and consideration. We're going to move on to the next item. Thank you. Recommendation to approve the renewal of the intergovernmental support agreement with the Marine Corps Logistics Base to provide canal maintenance. The initial agreement was approved in the May 8th, 2017 regular meeting. Mr. McCoy.
Yes, we're recommending approval of this agreement renewal. This has been a great partnership with the Marine Corps Logistics Base. They've saved a lot of money, which was the intent of this program in the first place, to hire local vendors to provide services that were once provided by private entities. And we have performed successfully, and this is basically the same agreement as last time, except it's in a different format. And the value is $75,000. It's 3 years, and we recommend approval.
All right. Any comments, questions, or discussion? I will say this, having had the opportunity to fly to D.C. and meet with top brass at the Marine Corps at the Pentagon, I recognize that canal maintenance doesn't sound like something that's particularly sexy, but those are the types of agreements that distinguish our Marine base amongst other DoD installations, also in conjunction with the partnership with the county through the landfill energy project, as well as the county's participation in the Payroll Development Authority, which helped create the biomass plant opportunity, which will help the Marine base go to net zero with respect to its energy needs. Those are the conversations that matter and help us maintain a strong presence here in this community. So I'm very thankful for that, and thankful for this commission for being proactive in pursuing these partnerships. We're going to move on. Planning and development update for the Dardy County Morgue. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. We're excited to be in front of you today to give you an update on the planning process for the Dardy County Morgue. The commission approved a contract late January with David Maschke, a local architect, and to start the process of development of the morgue, which is a SPLOST 7 project. And since then, we have been busy meeting with the coroner, and Mr. Maschke has been working on a conceptual design as well as siting locations. We went through multiple different locations with the coroner, and what you see in front of you today is a direct reflection of his requests and wants, as well as a floor plan, a conceptual floor plan that may be altered somewhat, but this is what a morgue could look like, and what Mr. Fowler would like to see in his morgue. So you have a packet in front of you, and I'm just going to briefly go through and point out a few things and give you some time to ask questions of Mr. Fowler and Mr. Maschke. The first page is the conceptual layout I spoke about. The second page is an option where we have the county morgue located at the old sign shop at the Public Works compound. This was a location that we looked at, and Dardy County Public Works would demo the existing sign shop, and the morgue would be built there. I know there were some concerns. You would like to see the possibility of if ASU was ever interested in a crime lab location nearby. And on that figure, you see between the Dardy County EMS station and Dardy County Public Works headquarters, there is a location there set aside that ASU could use to build a crime lab. But we will have a lab located inside the morgue for student learning. That was included. Our next page is a conceptual cost that coincides with that. I would like to point out it's $823,000 approximately. Option B, which would be to locate both ASU's crime lab, if it were to be built, as well as the morgue in between EMS and Dardy County Public Works headquarters. There is room for both there. Would require more site work, more infrastructure is not in place for that. We'd have to run water and sewer, so there are going to be additional costs associated with this location, as well as more screening because it's bounded on both sides by roads. So the next page, your conceptual cost there is over $100,000 more, approximately $47,000. And your final page in that packet is our funding summary. And you can see our SPLOST 7's budget was $414,000. We've awarded to date $44,750 for architect contract, which leaves us $369,000. And you can see for the two options summaries
quick
there,
question, Mr.
we have a
Addison.
shortfall of $409,000 and $533, depending on which option we go with.
Let me ask this question. I see that parking lot expansion on both concept B
Yes.
and I don't see parking lot on concept A.
On concept A, we're demoing an existing building, putting it back in the same location, so there's already parking located right there. Option B, we'll have to add some more because the parking that's there is already being utilized by Public Works.
I'm not saying that this is the way that I would want to go, but I'm curious if, can T-SPLOST dollars be used for parking lots? We're not sure. Can they? I was just curious if that was a way to shave off some of the unfunded component of this.
What's that parking lot right in front of the two? What's the lot right in front of the two, option B? What's that parking lot already there?
Public Works uses that parking.
That's the.
All right, so are substantively, is concept A and concept B, with the exception of the difference in location and the necessity, I mean, is it the same plan for both?
Yes, it's just taking into account two different locations.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, that's good. Mr. Fowler, I see you've got autopsy sink with disposal. Are you conceptualizing that there are going to be autopsies done here, or is that just in terms of managing the bodies, with the potential of doing autopsies?
Well, it's just there in case we rent it out to someone that want to come do a private autopsy or something like that, but that sink that they got, we probably don't need that expensive sink. We can probably change that. But I was looking at like you're going back to the parking lot. We won't need another parking lot. We're not going to have a place. I mean, I may go over there to let the body in and out, but we won't actually need a parking lot. The public safety don't use all those parking places. Sometimes DCP come over, Albany police to come over to the morgue and take pictures. The DCP parking lot right across the street. They can walk across the street. So the parking lot, I mean, $40,000, we won't actually need a parking lot. So if you go down to public safety, I go there every day, mostly travel. Not all those parking places be filled. I'm the only one gonna probably be going into the morgue. Then if the same thing, if law enforcement need to come, they can park across at DCP or they can park there. They're not gonna be there a couple of hours or 15 minutes to take pictures and go. They're not gonna stay there, so I don't actually need a parking lot. Then I was looking at the The sewer pipe, 8-inch sewer pipe, why we need 8-inch sewer pipe? We don't need that. I can go with the regular sewer pipe that you use in a house, or the one that EMS use, or the public service use. So those things, the 52,000 and the 40,000, I don't know why that was added in there.
Mr. Chairman. Ma'am.
Commissioner Gaines?
You know, those level of detail, it seems to me, should have been worked out with you before these costs were developed. You should have been able to determine whether or not the facility met your needs, you or the client, or overmet your need, or where there was opportunity to shave costs. I'm not sure why you...
Well, I got this over the weekend myself.
You're just seeing this.
So I just seen this over the weekend.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we, if there's an appetite, I'd like everybody to have an opportunity to digest this a little bit more. Mr. Addison, can we make arrangements for Mr. Maschke and Mr. Fowler and staff to get together to go over this? And let's represent it at another work session. Is that suitable to everybody?
Because he's not at the table. He's not at the table.
Well, Commissioner, Chairman, I would like to make a statement. Mr. Fowler has been at the table from the very beginning.
Yes, sir.
We've discussed both option A and B with Mr. Fowler. And he's been aware that we've been under budget. I mean, well, it's over budget.
Yeah.
Both options are over budget. He has agreed to option A, and then he's also agreed to option B. I'm not sure, what his position is at this particular time, but we're bringing this to the board because we've received feedback in terms of where the morgue should be located, option A or option B. And so we're in front of you to determine where should the morgue be.
But this seems like a little more than
from the corner.
I think what I'm getting, and my comments are not a criticism. There are some technical components that I think are being sussed out now. That it seemed like Mr. Fowler had some input on. I was curious about that. Mr. Maschke, Mr. Fowler made a comment about it. I don't know whether or not you need 8-inch sewer or not. One second, Commissioner Gaines. Did you have anything you wanted to add on these two concepts?
Are you talking about concept B in the first two line items? About the parking lot and the...
Yes, sir.
All right, those numbers, as I noted there, were developed by Dardy County Public Works. I didn't develop those, nor did I set the specs for them.
Sure.
On the, and I'll just be very frank, which I hope is okay. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but that's just how I operate.
That's all right.
The utility number includes 8-inch piping because per their estimate, they're anticipating the morgue to have a fire suppression system, which it will not. So in my opinion, the piping is oversized.
Okay.
But probably they were asked, and they had very limited information.
Sure.
I don't know what information they had. I wasn't involved in that. But I put in the numbers that they sent me, which was Friday morning. Okay. On the parking lot, they contend that the parking lot that's back there, which you can see on the aerial is pretty large, that at times it's full. And that may be. But the operation of the morgue and the number of cars that will be associated with the morgue, at the majority of the time, will be very minimal. 1, 2, 4 cars.
I understand.
That could even be parked in front, much like the EMS station has a little bit of parking on the front side, on the Newton Road side, which I am assuming that if this morgue goes on the west side of Habersham, adjacent to EMS, the front would be towards Newton Road.
Yes, sir.
So you could easily, share the driveway that comes in, put a little bit of parking for just a few, if supplemental parking is needed, or if they're having a class, then those people can park in that big parking lot that's behind there. But this hasn't been hashed out.
And we're just at the conceptual level right now.
Pardon me?
We're just at the conceptual level. And I totally understand that at the conceptual, like, you can start with a big menu and whittle down. I totally get that, totally understand. We have not put pen to paper, we haven't put a bid out. We can pivot downward a bit. It sounds like our conceptual plan is perhaps a little bit ambitious, maybe a little bit over-engineered in concept. That's what I was trying to get a feel for.
That's why I appreciated your suggestion. I think the parties need to get around the table.
Okay.
And work this down so that everybody is on the same vision.
I would like for that to happen, and that's not a criticism at all. I recognize this, and I say that in particular because we're looking at projected shortfall that's really, to be honest with you, I think we under budgeted when we did SLOS 7, but I think we were also looking at, I don't know, maybe we were looking at construction costs at the time, maybe we weren't, I don't know. But in order for this morgue to get built, I think it is gonna cost more than $414,000. But I would like for the parties to come back at the next work session, if that's okay. Mr. Fowler?
Look, for the record's sake, I had two locations to look at. My prime location was there beside the EMS. That's my number one choice.
Okay.
So I'm just putting that on the record. That's where I would like to be.
Okay.
They was saying I don't have money to go there in a sense because it's gonna cost a whole lot more, so you need to go beside DCP. So if that's what y'all say, I'll do that. But you gave me a choice what I want to do. I think would be more beneficial is out there beside EMS where I had said, number one, I'd love to be. And I talked to Mr. Masson, and he said, I asked him what he said would be the best choice, and he said that was his choice too. So that's where I like to be for the record.
I understand.
Okay.
Hold on, that's option A?
Option B, that's option B, I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, Mr. Chairman, are you asking, I guess, Mr. Maskey to be a part of that conversation?
Yeah, I think all that needs to get hashed
all of them
out.
need to be at the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I
you
just wanted to
know,
make sure Mr. Maskey was at the
Yeah,
table.
all
No,
of
I think
them, all
so.
of them need to be there.
I mean, this is labeled an update. It is not a recommendation at this point. And it seems to me there are two distinct decisions. Number one is the location, and number two is the design of the building. Those two things are separate and distinct. And all you guys are doing today is updating us on where you are, and that's fine. But it certainly does mean that you need, and obviously from this point on, you need to be working together. Both on, he has expressed his desire for the site, but in addition to selecting the site, you've got to look at where you can pare down perhaps the design and maybe bring it closer to budget. So I just consider this an update at this point and not a recommendation.
Yeah, it's fluid until you get
Yes.
something on paper. It's still
Right.
moving. I mean, so it's
Right,
it's
so-
options, but all of them need to be at the table.
I would
And my
presume
thing
that they
is-
will be.
Yeah,
Well,
my thing
I
is
think
if
we
the
need to
corner-
get,
if the
I think we
corner
need to
says
look
you
at the
need-
costs, and I think we have to realize, here's the cruel reality. We need to build a morgue. That's a fact. I mean, we got that. We don't have enough money in SPLOST 7 that is specifically dedicated to the morgue. That means the money's got to come from somewhere else, and it's going to come from somewhere else in SPLOST 7, and it's not going to come out of thin air. And so what I am hopeful that we'll arrive at, and Commissioner Gaines' point is a good one, which is this is an update, it's not a recommendation. Where I'm hoping that we will land is, A, that we'll have the two different options with the costs. Perhaps it'll be a little bit more cohesive. Maybe we'll nail down and maybe pare down some of the over-engineering of the initial conceptual plans. better idea of what the cost is going to be. And this is just a conceptual cost. That doesn't mean that that's reality. We all know how that works sometimes too. Could be more, could be less. Who knows? But we're going to have to pull the money from somewhere. And so what I would like to see are staff recommendations for how we would make up a potential shortfall in terms of budgeting. And that's going to be a harder decision that I think perhaps we're currently conceptualizing, because that means it's going to come from roads, it's going to come from sewers, it's going to come from, you know, alley paving. I don't know the answer to that, but I think that we need to recognize that. So there is, you know, being judicious with our money is important as well. Mr. Maskey.
I just wanted to make one clarification for you, which I think is important, which is the county administration asked for these estimates to be project estimates, not construction estimates, which is, there's a distinct difference. So when you look at the estimates, you'll see there's things like equipment and furniture. They're looking at the overall picture to get the right number, the total number the first time. The construction actually is just a fraction of the piece to make the thing come together. You know, it has the carts, the refrigeration unit, loose equipment, all these various things in there that comprise a project cost, which is a significant thing to keep in mind, so that sometimes, particularly in private, you know, they say, oh, well, the construction cost is going to be whatever, but they forget about all the additional costs, signage, moving in.
Curtains. And
exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
So, and also these numbers that you see in front of you do have a 5% contingency across the entire project cost already built in.
Sure.
For,
to be safe.
Especially now with construction costs going crazy, and lumber and so forth, as well as, you know, things that come up that may come along, something that got missed, something that gets added, a change order, an improvement, you know, an equipment change, depending on the timeline. You see we have equipment included in there. The prices, you know, this is already April, you know, if it doesn't get bid till June or August or something, numbers might change. So we're trying to give you a number that is a project cost, not just a construction cost.
Understood. Very good. Very nice distinction. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Commissioner Jones.
You know, I'm hearing something here from the corner. The corner says this is not his first choice. I don't want to set him up for failure. I mean, he should know where he needs to be. I don't know, and we're already talking about money, and money drives the train. I think we need to really look at what he's wanting. I don't know how this thing needs to work out, but I certainly wouldn't, if he says he's needing to be on slap and then we're going to put him in a box on Newton Road. I don't know how that's going to affect his work going forward. I mean, because...
Well, did he say that...
he said his first choice. What'd you say?
It was concept B. Right.
What'd you say your first choice was?
Concept B.
Concept B.
Right. That was your first choice, and not the choice not the place you're in. And did I hear that right, or did it go over my head?
Not concept A. Concept B.
There are two choices. One of them is his
I understand
first choice.
But he said something about it wasn't his first choice.
Well,
that's my first choice.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
He has expressed his choice.
Okay. Well,
all of this is fluid.
I know it is, but I'm just
I mean,
asking.
it's in process. Mr. Fowler is our client.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know Commissioner Gaines. That's why I was asking.
And I believe that the staff, working with Mr. Fowler and working with the architect, can get this all figured out. We're in a reasonably preliminary stage, and we can get it worked out before a recommendation comes forward. He has expressed his preference for a location. However, there are other matters to consider, the building itself.
I understand
So,
that, but I wasn't clear on that. That's why I asked the question.
I don't think we have a problem. We have information, and we're working towards a recommendation. That's the way I see it.
I guess, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Fowler, from a occupancy perspective, how many live people are usually in the morgue?
Live people?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what that?
In the morgue. I don't gonna be dead in the morgue. But my office in the courthouse.
Uh-huh.
My administration, because they had to deal with probate and the family's there.
So that would stay there, right?
They're gonna stay there.
Uh-huh.
So the morgue will be used for storing deceased person. They would be there for the law enforcement to come take pictures or whatever they need to do, and it would be there when students I have interns sometimes to go over and to show them certain things. But for just being in the office, I may not be there but once or twice a week.
Gotcha.
Myself. My administrator don't go there. Just my deputy may go there and put a deceased person in, but maybe one car, like I said, may be there. Only way 2 or 3 cars come there, the police want to come there and take pictures.
No, totally understand. I appreciate that information. I was just looking at this, and I'm not jumping ahead of you. But when we get to the design phase, I mean, I don't know if we need separate, male and female restrooms. If we could just have, one restroom with unisex changing, and then have the handicap restroom, obviously for ADA compliance. But just a thought, I want to put that out there. Second one is there a way to come up with a concept that is under budget or with the money that's budgeted?
That was my concern from day one, and that's why we came up with the less expensive alternative. And I would like to point out that these are not the only 2 sites that we looked at. We looked at multiple other sites, and these were the final 2 being in the area that he wanted to, and trying to take into consideration the budget.
Right. So all preference aside, and I'm not trying to. I know how it is when this is where I want my baby. But is there a spot that is feasible where we could design a concept that would fit within the budget? I'm just trying to be conscious of our.
Be the closest because all the infrastructure is in place. It already had power, water, sewer.
Gotcha.
So basically, you're taking that off and then plugging it right back in.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so the building, regardless of where you put it, has to have certain features. And that cost is almost built in, I assume.
Yeah.
And the location could affect the cost in the long term, depending on the infrastructure. But that building itself is what is going to drive the cost, am I correct?
Right. If you look at the cost estimates, you'll see that you got 414 budget. If you look at the cost estimates, just the building and just the 2 lines about the building are almost 414 by themselves. So that's before you even have. I mean, so the budget is already
can't build
from the get-go. That's before you even have any equipment or sign of anything. So.
It was under budget.
I was thinking about EMS. They have a generator already set up at EMS. If a storm come through, the lights and stuff go out on that side of Hammersham Road, you got bodies in there, you got a problem. But you already got a generator set up right beside EMS where I'm talking about, that you can run a generator there. They're going to be a lifesaver right there.
Would it have enough power to cover your refrigerated needs there as well as EMS?
It ain't gonna cost that much to run just the morgue, not the building.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chair, it just seems to me that if we consider this just one step in the process, this is an update. I don't know what your timeline is, but I'm assuming you're working with the timeline, and that there's still work to be done at the staff level before you come back with the recommendation. Then I think we're in good stead.
And I'm looking at 2 things. You said that there's not that many folks. I'm looking at you have a fairly large office over here. You say you're not going to be there that much, and you said look, you're not going to have that many people coming in. I see you got a fairly large waiting room. I just think that, you just need to go back to the table and sit down and just drop back and punt and rethink this thing and then try to build something to spec that match your money. If that's where we're going.
All right. I think we've got good direction, and thank you all very much. And we're going to move on. Recommendation of the Government Affairs Committee: the current plans continue for the county morgue, ensuring to the degree possible that sufficient land is available out near the selected site for the addition of a functional forensic science lab to be developed at some future date in partnership with ASU. Further, it's recommended that the Governmental Affairs Committee continue to work with Albany State University to assist where possible in development of the lab. Madam Chairwoman, Commissioner Gaines, on behalf of the Government Affairs Committee, please.
Yes, first of all, just thanks to my fellow committee members, Commissioner Newsom and Commissioner Johnson. Also thank Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Jones for being at this meeting and participating and giving their input. I think it became fairly clear early in the process that Albany State thought that there was an opportunity that perhaps there was not, and that we simply needed to kind of proceed on the course that we are on, that you just heard, but keeping in mind the possibility at some point in the future, if they have the resources, that we could accommodate some sort of expansion, but it would all be at their cost, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and thank you for your hard work on that. And I had some follow-up discussions following your meeting, and your hard work was appreciated and wise counsel. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Review and discuss the proposed draft of a management operations and maintenance agreement for the government center between Dardy County and the City of Albany. Mr. Lee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll start out. Of course, I received from Nathan Davis, the city attorney, a management operations and maintenance agreement, a draft agreement. I forwarded it all to the commission. It does two things. The part I was interested in was ensuring that both entities, the city of Albany and Dardy County, understood that there was joint ownership of the government center. The second thing that it did, that county administrator and the city manager were involved in discussing, was the management, operations, and maintenance of the government center. So there are two sections in there, one dealing with ownership and the other one dealing with management, operations, and maintenance agreement. Now, in terms of the ownership, the Albany-Dardy Intercity Authority transferred the property by quitclaim deed jointly to the city of Albany and Dardy County in September of 2017. That deed was not attached, but I'll send everybody a copy of it, and it was filed. And in my opinion, at that time, when the transfer was made and it was filed, we had joint ownership. However, for a period of time there, a commissioner or two on the city side that didn't necessarily agree with that, or they didn't want to agree with it at the time. So we've included in the management operations and maintenance agreement a ratification or an acceptance and a ratification of that deed, and that deed will be attached to it. So there won't be any question about ownership moving forward. Quite frankly, I don't think there was any question in the past, but that solidifies that issue. In terms of the management, operation, and maintenance, the agreement sets up a management team. The management team is comprised of the county administrator and the city manager. And then there are things that the county administrator and the city manager are to do throughout that document. And those were primarily prepared by the city attorney in conjunction with some recommendations from the county administrator and the city manager. Now, before this is executed, first off, it's my understanding that the city has pretty much agreed to this. I'm not certain that that's my understanding at this time. But before it's passed, I'll contact Attorney Davis today with some housekeeping things that we need to address in it. There won't be substantive changes, but there'll just be some housekeeping changes. And then I think the county administrator has maybe one substantive change that he would like for me to send over to Attorney Davis, and he can tell you about that one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Lee. My recommendation is in regards to Section 3F. It's titled Monthly Statements. Right now, we provide an annual statement. Monthly is too administratively burdensome, and we will not be able to meet the standard, and we would like to recommend semi-annual. So
and we'll recommend that change.
Okay. That makes reasonable sense to me.
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Gaines.
When I read it, I thought that was particularly onerous as well. It's burdensome. And thus my thinking that if you guys had to take that much time to give them a report each month, that you would, and I don't know how you, property management is an art. And do we actually manage it, everything about this building ourselves, or do we have an outside property manager, or just how does it work?
We do it internally through facilities management.
We do. And I will just parenthetically comment that type of bureaucratic reporting requirement that has to exist. Well, one, it's an example of energy that is being spent on bureaucracy as opposed to getting things done that this commission or the city wants done. But it's, I'll hold my comments.
I agree with you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, thank you very much. I'm assuming we have consensus amongst the commission to proceed with yes, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I just want to put a couple points out there for discussion from our administration here. One is about subleasing. I think there should be a clause in there that if either party decides to sublease any of their space is contingent on approval by the other party. Who's to say that we couldn't lease out part of our space here for a disco, and it would be outside the kind of the scope and purpose of the building. I know that's a little egregious, but I still think as we have a joint ownership, we should both have approval oversight in that. The other thing in section 5, and this is for you, Spencer, define team as county administrator and city manager or designee if that position is vacant. As you know, they have an interim now, that's fine, but if in the event there's a decision to be made and if there's no interim that's been approved on either side, I think we should be able to name a designee in some rare instance. And also, kind of along the subletting side of things, the operational cost is pretty consistent given the typical use of this building. If say subletting occurred and someone is an egregious user of power, say somebody put a big data center in here and they're using a lot of air conditioning and electricity, et cetera. Now the cost share 50-50 on utilities, the other side is having to disproportionately pay for more utilities based on increased utilization of an occupant to an egregious amount. Is there a way to say that if subletting occurs, then if there's any egregious increase in costs of operation to the building as a result of that subletter, then we're only responsible for what our average utilization co-cost is.
Spencer, did you hear that?
I'm not exactly, I don't exactly know where we're heading with that. I'd like to meet with Commissioner Gray afterward and see what he's talking about. But you're talking about cost of, and I'm not exactly certain what, but what it provides for in terms of cost is simply that all of the common areas we pay jointly, and of course they'll make a determination as to how, the management team will make a determination as to who provides the maintenance, and I'm assuming that the city will allow the county to continue through facilities management to do that, but they could hire it out, they could make recommendations to do whatever do it in a different manner. Now, the common areas in here, such as the room that we're sitting in and all of the floors, hallways and those kind of things, will be paid for from a maintenance standpoint jointly, 50-50. The areas in which the offices are located will be paid for on the basis of usage. If the city uses 60% of it, they'll pay 60% down of the facilities management cost. If the county uses 40%, we'll be paying for 40%. So we'll allocate it that way. In terms of the capital improvements, there's a section in there that deals with how the management team is to alert the city and the county commissions as to what the long-term costs are going to be, and if there any costs exceed a certain amount, then the city commission and the county commission will have to approve those costs. But they are to be paid jointly. All capital improvements are to be paid jointly by the city and the county, unless one of the entities wants to do something with their own area that they occupy that the other entity won't occupy, then they'll pay for that themselves. Now, I'm not certain that answered the question, but
Not really, but it was eloquent. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Thank you all for your comments and discussion on that item. We're going to move on. Recommendation to take appropriate action to either demolish or bring up the Code 1 dilapidated structure located at 1000 Liberty Expressway. Mr. Lee and Mr. McCoy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you have in front of you or in the packet a resolution that if this commission wants to move forward on 1000 Liberty Expressway, the old gasoline station out on the corner of Holly and 19 that was demolished by the storm, then you can review that and we can continue to discuss it, and if you decide you want to move forward with it, we can pass it either next week or some other time. Now, we would bring this action under our nuisance abatement resolution if authorized to do so by this commission. And what that simply means is we would take the owner, ZMS Inc., a corporation, into court, and the judge would order that it be completely demolished, or that the county could then go in and demolish it after a period of time and lien the property. Now, it's my understanding that Public Works has estimated the cost of demolition on this piece to be about $90,000. And then, of course, if we did that and demolition costs were $90,000, we would file a lien against the piece of property. Now, I'm not certain whether or not all of the liens that existed on the piece of property when I examined the title a while back due to the bankruptcy have been foreclosed. I'll have to check again this week and see if there are any outstanding liens on the property that our lien would be subject to. What that simply means is if our lien is subject to it and we go out and clear it up and make it a nice piece of property out there, and then the bank forecloses on it, well, they'll get a piece of property that's been cleared by us, and it won't be subject to our lien anymore. And so they can go resell it or do whatever they would want to do. There's a second problem on this that we need to look at, and that, of course, is the underground tanks. I'm not certain, I don't know where we would stand with underground tanks if we ended up with the property and there are no liens on it. If there are no liens on it, we file ours. Then we can, at a later date, we can foreclose our lien and own the property. Well, we would own the property with the tanks underground, and I'm not certain whether that creates a problem or that's a positive thing, because then somebody might be able to resell that piece of property with the tanks already in the ground and build another service station there. So there are several things that need to be looked at, but I wanted to advance it by, since we discussed it, and I was asked to advance it, and I'm advancing it. It's up for discussion.
Yes, sir. And Chairman, I would like to add that the cost estimate is $90,000. That's based on what it would cost maybe in the private sector, and what it would cost us based on staffing, equipment costs, fuel, that type of thing. But I will tell you that most of that cost for us will be internalized, because we'll be using our staff, which we've already budgeted to pay, and fuel our equipment and all that good stuff. But there will be some cost to us, I suspect, related to asbestos removal that we'll have to pay out of pocket. $90,000 is above what we have budgeted in the Special Services District budget. So whatever the cost is, associated with this project will likely entail a budget amendment for the Special Services District budget. So I wanted to make you all aware of that. And we are reaching out to EPD to determine if there is anything we need to do relative to the underground storage tanks.
Okay.
So assuming we take on the responsibility for demolition of this structure, you know, where does the liability, the environmental liability fall for one, leaving the tanks in the ground, or two, if we remove the tanks, does that liability follow us because we're responsible for appropriate environmental standardized reclamation and disposal of those? That's just, I think that's just a big old
That would be
white.
correct if we end up owning the property. I've got to go back and check the title to see if the bankruptcy took care of the liens in there, and the owners now own it free and clear. If that's the case, then we could end up owning the property. If that's not the case, and there's some liens outstanding, then the bank could foreclose on it and wipe our lien out, and we wouldn't own it.
I will say this,
Lose our money.
I'm all about cleaning things up. I really do not want the county to own a gas tank. And I'm saying that, I really do not, because we have no idea what has happened at that property. And frankly, if past behavior is an indicator, I really do not want the county to own this property. And that is, and I'm all for cleaning stuff up, but who knows? Everybody remembers what happened to the city with the radiator shop. Yeah. And I just, the petro business.
You can pretty much count on some environmental problems.
What is that term? What is that term that I'm
leaching?
No, what's this term that you can go now? We work with these things at the Southwest Georgia Regional Commission. Well, it's a term that you can use for going in, and the city used that term when it was over there cleaning up over there at the Mule Barn. And there's some grant money out there for
brownfield
remediation. Brownfield. That's the word I'm looking for. I mean, here's the deal. We got this dilapidated piece of property. I hear you, Mr. Chairman. I hear you, Mr. Chairman, saying that we don't want to own a gas station. I don't either. I just want the place cleaned up down there. But I think we need to have a little more research done on this thing. I heard.
I think Mr. Lee's going to have to get us that information.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think we need all that information before we can move forward with the problem about the tanks, the liens. All that needs to be on the table before we can do anything.
I agree with you, and I'm not suggesting a course of action today. I'm just signaling to everybody that I have a natural risk management associated hesitation with us owning a gas tank. That's just.
It's on Liberty
This is
Expressway.
not.
It's a prime piece of property.
That's what I was about to say. It just appears to me that it has commercial value.
Yeah, it's on Liberty
And I don't know why whoever the owners are not interested in marketing the property.
Well, I think they have. I just don't think it's as.
It takes a little time, though.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else wants to touch somebody else's gas tanks either.
Yeah, but.
It may not have the traffic count necessary to support the income that they initially projected, is what I would suspect.
Is that right?
That's
I don't
my
know,
guess.
but we need to do something. I mean, we need to do something down there. I mean, if not, we need to put a disclaimer, and somebody needs to take.
That's the same one that was running the gambling machines years ago.
But you know what? They never said anything about the gambling machines until after we got this mess down there. If they had said something about the gambling and all this kind of stuff, kind of like closing the door after the horse is gone. You know, it's not doing us any good. We got this blighted property down there on the main drag, Liberty Expressway. The folks in Holly Drive, College Park, all those folks over there. People down the road, everybody's mad about this thing, and we're sitting up here. We're not sitting up here, but we just need to figure out something, Mr. Chairman. If not, then when they call me again, I'm gonna give them your cell number like they did, like the man did. I'm gonna tell you, this is who you need to call, not me. But we need to, and I'm serious about this. I'm not gonna give you a cell number because I don't want nobody to call you and they think I gave it to you. I'm not gonna do that. But I am gonna tell them to call you. But we need to look at this thing and, I mean, we just need to do something. I just don't know what.
I understand.
mean,
Well, we're driving
to
at
satisfy our citizens.
We're driving towards a decision. We just need more information.
I want to piggyback on one thing though, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I guess I was talking to Mr. McCoy. We're back to this, I guess I'm gonna back up from last week, the Barbie-Gale. And I think you were saying the commission didn't give you, I guess, any direction, Mr. McCoy, on Barbie-Gale?
Barbara-Gale was discussed last week. I took a look at Barbara-Gale, and you had asked me about Barbara-Gale, and I advised that my understanding from the board meeting was that Spencer and code enforcement was going to continue to reevaluate the Barbara-Gale situation.
And here's where we are with Barbara-Gale.
I can add to that.
Hold on one sec. I don't want us to get too far off. I don't want us to get too far off.
Well, my point is, I understand what you're saying. My thing is, look how efficient and quickly we jumped on this convenience store, okay? So here's a project that's been sitting there. To me, we found the money, we found the recommendation. See, I have a challenge is when we want to do something, the staff want to do something, we put a lot of energy and we bring it to a close. And to me, right now, here we go. We've been sitting and talking about this one little situation, and we can't even just come and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. So that's kind of what's bubbling in me right now. It's like you came up with it, you came up with the money, you found the money, and it is like, when are we gonna come back and say, this is what we're gonna do?
So I'll be honest with you. I requested some information on Barbara-Gale so I could actually see it, because I had in my mind, based on what was being discussed here at this commission, that this was a demolished property. It's not. It's not. It's not a demolished property. In fact, like the tree's not even on the house.
That's what he said.
So like it presents a legally completely different circumstance.
Well, I guess my point is, I just want the staff to come and say, this is what we're gonna do, or we're not gonna do anything. It's kind of like now we still just float.
No.
Well,
I just want to bring it to a close, I guess.
I think what we're trying to do, and perhaps this is my fault for not understanding this better. I truly believe what was being described with Barbara-Gale was a dilapidated property. It does not meet the definition of a dilapidated property. It is a house that has a tree hanging over the top of it, and the county's not in the business, can't be legally in the business of going and fixing those situations. I recognize we got people that are angry and that it's unsightly, but in my mind, I truly believed we were having a discussion about a dilapidated property. This is a dilapidated property that we're talking about here. So to the extent maybe I created some expectations regarding Barbara-Gale because I did not understand it, and I requested pictures so that I could see it myself. And I'm like, well, okay, I mean, we can't do that because that's not legal. Like, that's not legally permissible, because if everybody wants a tree, cut that's hanging over their house, then by golly, we'd spend all the taxpayer dollars doing that all day, every day. We can't do that. So perhaps I initiated or drew some expectation around that because I did not understand things the way that they truly were. And if so, then I take responsibility for that. But this is a different situation with this gas station. It is a dilapidated property. So I would just say, if there's any frustration, I think it should be placed with the chairman. It shouldn't be placed with staff, because that's the way I understood. That's the way I understood.
And I think it clear up a whole lot of conceptions, a whole lot of misconceptions. If you talk to the person that's in charge of District 6, and that's Anthony Jones, And I can tell you what the latest thing that we have going on in District 6. I mean, this is who you need to talk to because I'm the commissioner out there. And I appreciate where you're going, Commissioner Edwards, and I appreciate all of it. But in this instance here, just recently, last week after I left the commission meeting, I told you I was going to go on a fact-finding mission. Okay, I went on a fact-finding mission, and I did the legwork. I called the mortgage company. That all these folks are tied up in it with the husband and wife having a divorce and everything. But we did narrow this thing down, working with code enforcement, code enforcement agent up there. She's not the code enforcement agent, but she's working with us and our code enforcement person, which is Miss Shamika Ray. We have found the owners of the house, and in the process of the code enforcement is sending them a letter to ask them to go ahead and take that tree off of that house. Because when I called and I talked with the mortgage folks said it would just only take a simple call from the persons who own the house to them, and they would see about getting that tree from leaning over on the property. So that's what we've done. So please, going forward, before you start talking around and treading around in District 6, please call me, because see, a lot of things happen over the weekend and we have not talked. So let's ask me, and then I can give you the latest update, because I'm always moving, because the people of District 6, they are special people, and I'm sure your folks are special as well. But when they call, they want something, so I'm doing all I can, and hopefully that the owners of this property is going to come forward, either going to clean it up, they're going to either clean it up, be fined, or either they're going to authorize the mortgage company to cut that tree. So we are on the right track, and I just spoke with Mr. Lee about it this morning, and we're going to have some more discussions on this. So that's where that Barbigale is, and like you said, Mr. Chairman, Mr. McCoy, and you all have said that we cannot go on private property and do that, and I understand that. So we have to stay, whatever we do, we have to stay within the law to keep ourselves out of trouble. So
yes,
that's where we are on 946 Barbigale, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, very good. Thank y'all. Let me ask this. I need to know, is there consensus? Well, where we stand is we need to get more information from Mr. Lee about the ownership of this property before we take action. Does everyone agree with that? Because I think that the lien issues, the bankruptcy issues, all that, Mr. Lee, you'll bring that information back to us, sir?
I will, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much.
I mean, you know, to your point, Commissioner Jones, I remember right before it was middle of 2016, my homeowner's insurance company had people go around and take pictures of all the property that they insure, and I had a limb hanging over my house. They told me, look, kind of crazy, I need to cut it. So I paid to have it done. 2017 January, the tree comes through. So it's kind of ironic that they were worried about one limb when a whole tree came through. But my point is that the homeowner's insurance, maybe that mortgage company would go to the person's homeowner's insurance and say, we cannot insure that property anymore, and if you don't get that tree off your house.
That's what the person told me at the mortgage company. They said it would just merely take a phone call from the owners to call us, but we cannot give you any information, which, I tried to get as much as I could, right. But then they called on and they didn't. But she did, that was the buzzword, that if you have them to call us, we'll do something, but you can't do it. So I think this just got to play out. I mean, we got to just work it, and I understand our folks are impatient, but we got to stay out of trouble as well during this process. But it's going to happen. One day they'll look up and the tree will be gone.
Understood. All right, very good. We're going to move on. Recommendation for Public Works to apply for a local maintenance and improvement grant, LMIG Safety Action Plan for Georgia Department of Transportation for a 70% grant that requires a 30% match. Funding is available in T-SPOS. Will be used for the installation of new signage and or the repair of existing signage along 6 roads, 24.6 miles. Mr. Addison.
This money made available to us based off of accident investigation and the grant application is due by Wednesday, so we recommend moving forward. This is going to be in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $30,000 total, so our matching portion will be much less. Thank you.
And this is the subject of the special called meeting that is directly to follow. All right, any comments, questions, or discussion on that item? Good work. Yes, sir.
This is a good work.
Oh, very good. Thank you. All right, Mr. McCoy,
Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lee,
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gaines,
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Newsom,
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Edwards,
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Jones,
Pray for the house and the service station to come down.
Commissioner Johnson.
I got one quick thing, sir. Can we have our tax commissioner, Shauna Joseph, come before us to kind of give us explain to us how the state allows exemption for senior citizens when they reach a certain age for their homeowners insurance?
Yes, sir.
Just know how it works.
That's can you make that happen, Mr. McCoy?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Exemption
Very
to
good.
what? I didn't quite understand.
There's a tax exemption that.
For homeowners insurance?
I'm sorry, homeowner tax. I'm sorry, not insurance,
Homestead.
tax. Not
Just exemption, I
homestead
think.
exemption beyond that.
I think specifically around school board tax.
School board tax.
It's school board.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said insurance, I was wrong.
Understood. Thank you. Commissioner Gray?
Nothing, sir.
We're adjourned and now call to order the special call meeting for April 12, 2021. A note for the record, all commissioners are present. We have one item on the agenda, additional business. Consider for action the recommendation for Public Works to apply for a local maintenance and improvement grant, LMIG Safety Action Plan from the Georgia Department of Transportation for a 70% grant that requires a 30% match. Funding is available in T-Spots, will be used for the installation of new signage and or the repair of existing signage along 6 roads, 24.6 miles. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're adjourned.